All right, welcome to Dual Redundancy, the only podcast where you can hear all latest in television and entertainment news with two else with exactly the same opinions. I'm one of those hosts, David Allen, and another one is
John Berwick. The third one is
Kyle Bridger. I would say I am the two towers to John's Return of the King to Dave's Fellowship of the Ring. I chose Two Towers because that was my favorite of the three Lord of the Rings.
At least you're not the weird animated Hobbit one.
Oh, that's what I was about to say. I'm like, you're going to put me with the Hobbit, the Battle of the Five Armies, or whatever, like
the Desolation of Smaug, or whatever it was.
Whatever that. Oh my God. Yeah, we're kind of talking about that show or that movie because we're talking about that show, Lord of the Rings. I gotta always look this up. It's the longest title. The Lord of the Rings, the Rings of Power. That's we're devoting our episode to that. Kyle, I know, is a big Lord of the Rings fan. I don't know much about it. I think John might be somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see when we get to talking about the series premiere of that new Amazon show. Plus, we got some quick checks, and we have this first segment, which I can't recall what it's called. John?
In and out points.
In oder out. In oder out. In, out, in, out, in, out.
Yes, it is in and out points. Our first one tonight involves, I guess, the oldest of the traditional big three American television networks, NBC. They may be losing an hour of prime time. According to the Wall Street Journal and reported on by The Hollywood Reporter, the broadcaster has had early talks about turning the 10 p.m. hour back to affiliates. All right, I got some stats to come and some other things that what this may mean. But initial thoughts, Kyle, NBC losing an hour of prime time.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see whether it's the 10 o'clock hour, the 8 o'clock hour. I would imagine it would be the 10 o'clock hour.
Yeah, I think it's the 10, but that is an interesting, it could be.
Yeah, because I imagine those types of shows are going to be more expensive. But also those types of shows seem to be going to the way of like Netflix, and those hour-long dramatic or episodic shows seem to be going to the streaming services. So I'm not surprised by this at all, with how networks are really being hurt as far as their content goes. Like, nobody really wants to watch their stuff, and the Emmys was like a clear show of that, where they only get a certain number of nominations in comparison to all these other networks. So I am not at all surprised, and what it probably means is more money for Larry David and Seinfeld, because that's what's going to be sold. But if you're an affiliate, really.
Yeah, that was going to be my joke later on. But yeah, so what's going to happen is this would shrink their prime time footprint by 7 hours per week during much of the year. Obviously, if there's like a Sunday night football or something, that's going to probably still be there. But overall, this would save them money. They would be producing less primetime shows to fill their schedule. So, less things to worry about. On the other hand, they're not going to be making, I don't know exactly how it works with the ad dollars, but they're turning this hour back to the affiliates. I guess it'll be those ads from the local markets that are making money for the affiliates, not the national broadcasting company. Whenever this would happen, though, if it does happen, the earliest it would be fall of 2023, because this fall schedule is already out and it's it's set. But yeah, it's gonna be interesting, because if they return this hour to the affiliates, it'd be the 10 o'clock hour, and they could fill in with whatever they want. I mean, it could be extended local news, because that's usually what it is at 11 o'clock when they do get that half hour before the late night shows. Or could it be like syndicated fare, as Kyle was joking, just reruns of Seinfeld? Like, I don't know what the affiliates could do that would be better than what's already currently airing. Obviously, it's going to be a lot less. It's going to be a lot cheaper but like I don't know, like ratings wise, what it's gonna be that's all that better. John, do you have any thoughts on this?
No, I mean, it kind of. I feel like they're shooting themselves in the foot as far as maybe viewership goes, but I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe people do want that, and it's a win-win. I don't know. I'm honestly not sure.
It's interesting because like,
I
oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, what they could do, and I don't know if they want to do this, but if they really wanted to, I don't know, transition people over to Peacock, they could use that hour and rerun maybe Peacock original content during just that slot time. But they probably just want people to go over to that service anyway.
Yeah.
So I doubt they're going to do that. But it would just be an idea. And if you're just showing it, in that hour, I mean, maybe that would entice people to go to the Peacock. I don't know.
Yeah, I know that like this summer they're airing a lot of the Password show from Keke Palmer and Jimmy Fallon, and it's like that thing probably costs next to nothing. It's probably just the salaries of the stars to do it, and that's easy to produce. And I think it's been doing pretty well in the ratings. It's like just do that, like do some cheaper fare. The thing that worries me because like we can look at like their schedule, you know, right now it's like they have I think it's like Wednesday is like 3 Chicago shows, 3 shows on Thursday of like Law and Order, and so it's a lot of Dick Wolf will be hurting. He's going to be losing 2 of his like 6 hours of NBC weekly stuff here, but like Fox and the CW do something similar to this. They only have 2 hours, 8 to 10 already. That's what they do a night, and I feel like sure they develop less and probably spend less money, but like I don't feel like they have like even the hits of broadcast. Sure, like broadcast is hurting, but I think broadcast, NBC still has some hits in the world of broadcast. And it's this may be a thing of like they're producing so many shows to fill all these hours. Yes, some are gonna hit, some are gonna miss, but you have more of a chance. But like with Fox, it's like, well, especially in the days when Fox had American Idol, it's like, well, 2 nights of those are just American Idol. And then it's like, well, we just need Wednesday, Thursday, 2 hours, and Friday we can put, whatever they had, Kitchen Nightmares. And it's like, that's our schedule. We're done. It's like, so you really got to put a lot of faith in those like 4 shows you're producing that year. But I don't know. One thing that could possibly change is the Hollywood Reporter mentioned about possibly earlier start times for the Tonight Show, Late Night with Seth Meyers, SNL. Currently, they kick off at 11:35, but there's like, well, if we're giving the affiliates now the 10 o'clock hour, and they already have the 11 o'clock hour, they're not going to do 90 minutes of local news. Do we move those up to 11? Do we start the Tonight Show at 11 now? And just have the affiliates do like, an hour of news or, a 30-minute news and then a Seinfeld rerun. What do you think, Kyle?
I don't know. I think they tried this similarly with Jay Leno, didn't they? When they put him at 10 o'clock.
Perfect. Yeah. Yes. So it's so funny to me that they're doing this.
It's again. Like they're repeating the very same thing. I mean, I don't know. I don't know why they go back to the well when that didn't seem to work. I just don't know how they think anything's going to change from, what they already have had. Doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah. Cause back in 2009, the 10 PM hour was turned over to the Jay Leno show. This was mostly to keep Jay, but then also honor the contract they did whatever number of years ago, that after a certain number of years, Jay would step down, Conan would get the Tonight Show, all there. But this became a disaster because the ratings went down for Jay Leno because they don't want 5 nights of primetime Jay Leno. So then the affiliates got really mad that the local news at 11 o'clock, their ratings were dropping because it's like, you start at 8 and they just keep going down.
Yeah.
The thing. And then the Tonight Show was hurt because it just it was dominoes. And this led to like kind of Conan's exit. He didn't want to have, because they were going to like, oh, let's just move Jay back to 11 and we'll do 11 to 11:30 and this and that. It's like, no, like the Tonight Show's at 11:30. That's when it is. Well, maybe not anymore. It might not be.
Yeah, boy.
We'll see.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what the rating situation is like for the late night shows,
Yeah.
but I gotta imagine they get a bulk of their revenue and stuff from YouTube or social media,
Definitely.
kind of short clip stuff. So maybe they're thinking that in today's world it could work since most of our stuff is going to be digital anyways. Why not bring this back and move this up forward and move the news to 10:30 or 10 o'clock or whatever it is? But
because
yeah, I just don't know how
NBC
this gets any better.
must have calculated this here, because as we were saying, it's like, well, you're going to give 10 to 11:30 back to the affiliates. That's going to erode some of your viewership. So when they come back to the Tonight Show and Seth Meyers and all that, they're probably going to be lower now, because now you really think, 2 episodes of Seinfeld are gonna be the same whatever as, I don't know what's airing on ABC and CBS that would, lead those viewers to Colbert and Kimmel. Like, I don't know. So it's very interesting. We'll see what happens. Nothing's set in stone yet, but we'll keep an eye on it. We're talking about NBC. That's the television arm of Universal. Let's talk about the movie side of things. Universal Pictures Fast X, the 10th Fast and the Furious film, is currently filming for a May 2023 release, but not everyone is happy about it, especially the residents of the Los Angeles historic neighborhood of Angelino Heights. Ever since 2001's Fast and the Furious, fans have made a visit to Bob's Market, the store owned in the film by Dominic Toretto. Must be a family market, it's all about the family. I don't know who Bob Toretto is, but they go to this market, and not for selfies, but for their own street races. Nearly every night, car enthusiasts spin out doing donuts at high speeds in front of the store, in addition to racing and doing street takeovers throughout the area just west of downtown LA. All right, Kyle, do you think your old little green car there could have done this when we were out in LA?
My Dodge Neon,
Yeah.
soup that sucker up and get it out there. Yeah, no, I don't think so. But I'm just confused. So it's fans of the show, fans of the
in the
movie are coming out and being like, "Yeah, we're gonna ride by in my
Uncle
souped-up
Dom
car
told me I gotta,
in honor of the Fast and the Furious." That is dedication. I will say that is dedication for sure.
The Joker fans, they went to the Bronx to kick down the stairs. These guys, no way. We're gonna take the Dodge Neons out for a spin and really out for a spin.
Yeah. And a lot of those cars, have the exhaust systems where it's like you're gonna get an exhaust system that'll sound like your car can race, and you're still, just sporting a Honda Accord, really, So, and they're annoying. So I would not be surprised that neighbors are, upset if they got to hear
this
that. This
would piss me off. I couldn't deal with this, John.
Yeah, I don't want to.
Are you in the same boat? Yeah.
Yeah. Why can't they put up a couple of speed bumps in the area? Like, you know what I mean? All it takes is for one person to go over that the wrong way, and nobody else is ever gonna go over it that way.
That is true. I did see that they erected those bollards, I think it is, those pylons, metal poles. Yeah, and they put that up in certain streets, but many drivers, they just moved to the next street. They're like, okay, it's close enough. We could just go over one street over. It's the same effect. I'm sure Dom went down this road too. But the residents aren't happy, and they're planning protests for when Fast X are back in town to film. Because not only is it extremely annoying to them, but it's also unsafe. There's been a rise in traffic deaths, 21% jump from the same months from 2022 to 2020. There's been a big increase there, and they have this quote. They sent an email to this article, and they said, quote, "If this film shoot is allowed to go forward in Angelino Heights or any part of it from F10 Productions, we will stage a protest and will invite many reporters and news cameras to film us protesting this film shoot all day and night. We will hold this protest to honor the 178 people who have been killed by street racers in Los Angeles and to shame Universal for their callous disregard for this deadly epidemic of street racing their film started and continued to promote." And One resident even, this was an insane story to me. In the article said how one neighbor just, complained to a fan that was doing something in front of their house, and then that fan pulled a gun on the neighbor, and thankfully nobody
What
was
the
hurt.
hell?
But it's just like, guys, it's a
Wow.
movie. It's a
Yeah.
movie. And probably
Yeah.
half the time nowadays it's all CGI. They're in the studio
gonna
pretending
say,
to be on this
They
street.
don't even have to film on the street. Yeah, they could just green screen them in. It would probably look better. Like, I don't know.
That Mandalorian like volume
Yeah.
screens that they have around. Yeah.
Mm.
But man, what a way to close out the trilogy about family, just pissing off everyone in that neighborhood.
Yeah,
Oh,
but
man.
I mean, if it's
I
how
get it,
are
though.
they? If they need to. I get on their side. It's like they need to film somewhere. I get, like you said, I guess it could be CGI, but they're technically not, bringing these street drivers in. They're just coming of their own accord. So it stinks for the neighbors. The
It just
neighbors
stinks,
just
like,
want them
with,
to go
like,
film elsewhere. It's like, can you go film in the desert somewhere and leave us
I mean,
alone?
It
Well,
is
it's like that
kind of
Breaking
encouraging.
Bad
it,
house.
though. Yeah, that's
With,
exactly
like,
what I was thinking too.
but like, I was gonna say, like, at least with like that, like that person at least signed up, or at least the original owner signed up. I want my house to be in film. Yes, you can film here. Sure, they didn't know how big Breaking Bad was going to be, but like this, it's like how many people in this like neighborhood were,
Agreed.
yes, were you allowed to do this? Like, were they getting any money from Universal for this? It's like, no, we're just taking over your street. So, but
I mean, again, they could go to like their rep and complain, because the representatives are the ones that you see, like, oh, we film in LA, like made in LA or made in Georgia. It's like they're proud of the film location. So
I wouldn't
if
be
they're not,
surprised if
then
like Vin Diesel was like the representative for the district. I'm sure he ran for.
It's probably Toretta or Beretta or whatever that guy's name is.
Yeah, Bob's Market.
Bob.
But all right, that is it. We're talking about one film franchise. We should talk about a series based off novels, but it was really popularized by a certain film franchise, and that is The Lord of the Rings. In order to talk about it, we have to go back. So guys, send us back.
I'm back, baby!
I forgot to do it. I did it lip sync. I did it.
You were
lip
so in
sync.
tune, and you did a
Yeah.
Frank Costanza impression. I can't believe it. Wow, so
I
good.
did it lip sync. Oh my god.
All right, The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power series premiere. 2 episodes actually dropped on September 1st. A Shadow of the Past and Adrift. Set thousands of years before the events of J.R.R. Tolkien's The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings, the series begins during a time of relative peace and covers all the major events of Middle-earth's Second Age, including the forging of the Rings of Power. This has been an ongoing story on Dual Redundancy, dating back, I think I looked it up, episode 185 from November of 2017, and that's when we talked about the series announcement.
That's
185,
wild.
November 2017.
Half the life of the podcast.
Yeah. That's
we
crazy.
talked about it at least 5 more times since then, including how the series was looking for funny-looking background actors, and how one crew member's job is to watch dust particles and how they react to footsteps and to breathing.
To be fair, have you seen the intro? I don't know if they showed it in the pilot. The intro is all dust particles. I mean, it's all CGI, but that guy had a real job, it turned out.
he worked hard. He got his due. All right, but we're finally going to talk about it. I'm sure we're going to have a lot to say. I got some like news articles I'm going to mix in as we go as well. I'll say up front, I am not a Lord of the Rings. I'm not an expert for sure. And I'm not even say I'm a fan. I've seen the first film way back when. I haven't seen much else outside of that. I know Kyle has seen all the films multiple times. And John, I don't know where you go. Let's start with you first, and then I'll hear from Kyle. John, what did you think of The Rings of Power?
Well, I'm a Lord of the Rings fan. I don't know if I'd say I'm a lore master or deep into the lore, but I enjoyed the movies. I've listened to books on tape, so I have an idea. But I enjoyed this. I liked, again, same with some of the Star Wars stuff. There was like hints of the movies. You know, they become the Mines of Moria, but whatever it was named beforehand, and like they show the area outside of it. I think this might have been the second episode, but you can see like the similarities. So I don't know. It feels like it's building up to, it's building that world even further, and I like that. I am not sure. I know we're gonna talk about it. Why it got so much hate? I think it was all right. I don't have any complaints with it. I'd like to see it expanded a bit more. Like I said, I did see 2 episodes, and it very much feels like they're world building still. But I'm interested.
All right, Kyle, what did you think?
Yeah, I'm like John. I mean, I'm a fan in that I've read the books, I've read or I've seen the movies, but I'm not like a super nerd that knows like all their lingo and all that. But what I'll say about the series so far is I think, to me, with how much money they spent, it should feel bigger than it is. And at times it feels small to me because it's like a lot of what made the Lord of the Rings movies cool was the set and the locations, and we're like zooming past like Aragorn and Legolas, like climbing these huge mountains and stuff, and all of that is CGI here. There was just times where it felt like, oh, okay, like here's the edge of the set and here's the backdrop, and I could see, and it just felt small in that way. I do agree that they're world building, and I am interested in what's going to happen because it seems like something's going on with the dwarves. They have a secret of some type, and the hobbits have some kind of secret going on with what I assume to be Gandalf flying in. I assume that's Gandalf. I don't know.
So, I mean, if I could interrupt you,
Maybe.
there's a whole thing about this where, like, Tolkien's son finished up a lot of this lore and published it and all that. And apparently, there's more wizards than Gandalf and all that. From his books, I believe, and I could be wrong, so all the lore masters, forgive me, that there were a pair of wizards that were not really in the movies that arrived during this time. So people are speculating it could be one of those 2 wizards. It could be Gandalf arriving early just for just for having the payoff of having Gandalf in it. I saw some speculation that it could be Sauron, which I don't think that's correct at all.
I don't think so either.
But yeah, it seems like there's a couple different possibilities you can go to, and none of them are really 100% lore accurate at this point from what we can gather. So it's interesting that it could be a lot of different people. It's weird.
Yeah.
The non-fan's gonna jump in here. Is that the meteor at the end here?
Yeah.
The person that's
Yes.
Okay. I was wondering if you guys had theories of who that could be, because I was like, I don't know who this is.
Yeah, I thought it might possibly be Gandalf.
I would love it to be Gandalf, but it's really early in the lore for him to be showing up. Like, significantly early.
We're set thousands of years before the Hobbit and Lord of the Rings.
He's also a wizard, so he's pretty old, but yeah.
I know, but still.
Yeah.
He didn't look a day over 1,243 to me.
But the last thing I'm going to say about my initial thoughts on the series is that there were some cool moments, just not like a lot of them. It felt like one an episode, and I'm like, we've got an hour and 5 minutes, and you give us like one really cool thing, and I felt like the rest of the time, the rest of the dialogue, because it's fantasy and it really is borderline like young adult fantasy, that it's not really so much meant for older people like us, even though they can't enjoy it. But the difference between like this and say Game of Thrones is the adult mature themes in Game of Thrones can leave you hanging on to those conversations that are happening. And those conversations that are happening on Game of Thrones are much more like direct, like it's like, F you, I'm going to do this, or backstabbing, or this or that. In this world, that's happening, but it's all it's done with like floofy dialogue or this, you know. So
we
it just seems like not. I don't know. Like it's not.
it is
It's
interesting
not.
to
It's
know the
lacking that
rating.
mature element to get us through to those cool moments.
Yeah, the rating of Rings of Power is TV-14. Obviously, House of the Dragon, TVMA, HBO.
Yeah.
So there's a difference there. I got some. We'll talk about some, pros in a minute. For me, and you kind of mentioned it, Kyle. Like, yeah, there was maybe one or two cool moments in the episode, but the rest of it, the rest of the hour and five, as a non-fan, I was kind of bored. I was drifting. I was on my phone.
So
You
could
talk about some of the. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, could this be because there's still world building? I can kind of almost see the first
Maybe.
3 or 4 episodes being kind of dry because they're really trying to establish. I mean, they have what 4 or
putting a
5
lot.
different storylines going on.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I agree, but I don't know if that's going to be the norm for the rest of it. You know what I mean?
I agree, but yeah, it's like, do I have to go through? Yeah, like do the homework of 4 hours before they establish the world and also what the show is? Because at least for me, I had a better time with House of the Dragon. I barely know Game of Thrones as well, but I could follow the plot, the characters. What's the hook? What is the through line throughout this series? Right now, other than the title being the Rings of Power and hearing the description of they're going to forge, the rings, I don't know what the show is specifically about. And to me, I felt a lot of the characters were, pretty soulless, kind of bland, just boring. Like I couldn't like hook into some of these characters. I cared about what is it in the bottom right? Are the elves, hobbits? I don't know.
The
In the bottom
pre-hobbits.
right.
The bottom right.
Yeah.
They're
Okay.
like before the hobbits existed. They're like
I was into that actually more than the other storylines, especially of our lead here. But while we have these characters up, I'll get to some other stuff in a bit. But while we have the characters and storylines up, were there some that you guys liked more than others in these first 2 episodes? Things that are working, things aren't aren't working.
I think with R&D, or the guy in the upper right here, I felt like this situation was like the will they, won't they, and it just lasted too long. It's like we already got the information. We know they want each other. What else is happening here? Something is underlying this whole relationship, and I think they could have gotten to that quicker. But as far as that storyline, I'm actually fine with it because it's like in the front lines of what's happening. Like they could do some cool stuff with that. So I'm on board with that storyline. I actually found the Harefoot storyline to be boring.
Yeah, me too.
And Galadriel
And Elrond.
Her storyline is okay. But yeah, I would just say I feel like they could be more to what's happening. And I mean, maybe it's just like John says, their world building, it's going to take time, but I just feel like the amount of time they have, we could have gotten past some of these things a lot quicker. Especially with how much money we have and all this stuff.
Perfect. Let's go into the money. So yeah, I think the thing sounds nice. Like there's a great score. I will say that, and it mostly looks nice. There's points when we started off, like there was like a fiery dragon battle in rain. They're climbing ice. As it kind of went on, it started big for me, and then as it went on, it started feeling less and less and less. And then by the time, especially we got to the end, when they're on this boat, and all I could see was just the boat, and like everything was fake. I'm like, you just had a boat in a green screen studio, and that's it. And you're just like rocking your camera. It just seems so fake to me, and it just really pulled me out. And it's like, and then you compare it to last night's House of the Dragon. Sure, it was basic, but like we had just scenes in the woods and it felt real. I was like, because I'm sure they were on location in the woods.
Yeah.
Here it just felt so much like in a studio. And as you were saying, Kyle, it just brings the world so much smaller.
Smaller,
it's like, that's the end of the world. That's it. You could see the end. But
and what I think is actually funny, not about about this, but we cut to them on the ship like this. They're traveling a long way and they're standing single file. I'm like, give me a seat on this boat, please. I thought it was going to heaven. I got to stand up in formation the entire time. Get out of here.
It's a great honor, Kyle.
Yeah.
It's the greatest honor the elves could ever have.
Yeah, the greatest honor. We're
Give me a
gonna
hot
torture
towel,
you.
give me some peanuts, give me something here. I can't just. But yeah, so
the scene that I will say goes along with what you said was when the two elves, the High King and then Elrond, were talking to each other, and it's like he comes down the steps, and it's like it's probably like a rubber or plastic boulder, and it comes down, and you can just see the green screen behind of like. I'm like, this looked better back in the movies, and this was, technology from 15 years ago. I don't know why. It just at times it looked bad. Although I remember us having the image of them climbing the ice from like a podcast a while ago, and us being like, I actually thought that looked fine. So they did some fine tuning with that. I bet that image that we got early on.
It might be like that Stranger Things season 4 thing where they'll go back and tinker with some other stuff that they didn't quite finish in time. But I saw over 20 visual effects studios and 1,500 visual effects artists at those studios working on close to about 10,000 shots in this series. There's just so much CGI and visual effects in this stuff, and that probably adds to the price of it. This is just straight out the most expensive show ever. $715 million price tag that's the estimate is, which equates to about 5.1 million annual Prime subscriptions, to put in Amazon terms. And I will say, there's a caveat to this, because season 1, that total includes the $250 million they spent on just the rights alone, and then the $465 million on production. So that doesn't, the advertising, the promos, that cost isn't there. But this $465 million, I would hope that they were cost conscious enough that they're going to maybe use some of the costumes and some of the sets that they built here for seasons 2, 3, and 4. And obviously you won't have to pay for those rights, but still $715 million. To put things in perspective, Stranger Things costs about $40 million per episode in season 4. House of the Dragon is just under $20 million per episode right now. These 8 episodes, so I took out the amount for the rights. I'm just going to divide the $465 million of production. 8 episodes, that's about $58 million an episode.
Wow. That's crazy.
With all that being said, the $715 million price tag, I saw this one stat in one of these articles. That's like 0.15% of Amazon's 2021 revenue.
Yeah, that's nothing.
Like their revenue in 2021, I'll get the exact number here. It was about $470 billion.
Yeah.
So
my God.
A little splurge on a treat.
Yeah, I know. This is nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Drop in the bucket.
Man.
But yeah, so it's very expensive. I don't know if everything is there. And I want to talk a little bit about kind of the showrunners involved with this here, because maybe that was one of the reasons I didn't fully connect with it. Maybe just because they're not used to making television or really anything at all. They were handed the keys to this big franchise, and not only do they have a small IMDb, they technically have a smaller IMDb than I do. I have more on my IMDb than these guys. They only wrote a script that was tossed out in favor of another draft for Star Trek Beyond, and that's it. There's other stuff that they've worked on for Bad Robot Productions that never saw the light of the day, so that's not here. They have a Flash Gordon thing that was announced, so it's after Lord of the Rings, but that is it. That's insane. Like, how did they get this? How did they get this franchise?
Well, you said they were in there with Bad Robot. That's J.J. Abrams, right? So I'm sure they've got clout in that way, but I don't know.
But even still, it's like, oh, yeah, I'm JJ. I vouch for them. It's like, do you vouch for them for $715 million? Like, that's a lot, JJ.
Maybe they showed.
We get you, JJ, for $715 million.
God,
maybe
little lens
they
flares.
yeah, maybe they just, I don't know, wowed them with some kind of Lord of the Rings lore and
Yeah.
had a crazy pilot episode and were able to sell it. I don't know. I have no
Yeah.
idea.
And with all that being said, you would think you would, if somebody like Peter Jackson wanted to be involved, you would let Peter Jackson be involved. But supposedly, the Oscar-winning director reveals that the studio asked him to be involved, promised to send him scripts because he's like, well, I'm not signing up for anything until I know what the scripts are, and then never contacted him again. So it's like, no, you don't want any feedback on your scripts? Okay, I'm out. Like, you don't want any
Wild.
help at all? Any tips? Okay. That's a choice. That is a choice. Not to. I know you want to differentiate yourself from the movies, but at least maybe have him on as a consultant a little
But
bit.
at the same time, the movies were successful. You're building on this world. Would you not want to have some sort of continuity and some sort of like dovetail? Like, I don't know. To me, it seems like why would you not go through like almost any hoop to have him on board, let alone just sending him some scripts and saying, "Hey, what do you think?" Like, that's
Yeah,
crazy to me.
especially when some of the characters date back to this era, then and we're in that era too. So I don't know, but
Yeah, but it was a big premiere though. I saw headlines saying it's the biggest Amazon Prime release ever. I mean, I don't
I
know
would
what the
hope.
bar is on that, but it was big. And if you look at the actual numbers, it's estimated that it snared more than about 25 million viewers worldwide on day one. So it was a big premiere. A lot of people watched it. Not everyone seems to be a fan of it though. The show has been reviewed bomb on sites like Rotten Tomatoes. I looked it up this morning. Got 84% from critics, 39% from fan. A lot of the complaints seem to be about the diversity in the show. Marvel's She-Hulk just recently was reviewed bomb too. That was 88% versus a score of 36% for the audience. Another strong female hero leading the show. I wonder why those two shows are being picked on so much by critics. I don't know. I don't get it. I don't get it at all. As you guys were saying, it's not 39%. Even for me, who was, it wasn't for me, it's not 39%.
no
way.
I mean, just in
No.
production alone, it's
No.
it's really well done, and I mean, all the performances are, fairly good. It's a fantasy. It's a made up world.
Yeah.
It's
It's literally fantasy.
Yeah.
It's not, but
It's silly.
I did see though that Amazon is supposedly going to I guess they started this with a league of their own when they launched that in August, because surprise, surprise, there was another review bomb on that show as well. But they're gonna start doing a 72-hour delay on all user reviews on Prime. So
I
I
noticed
guess maybe
when I watched
there's
it,
no
when I watched the
reviews right
second
now. Yeah.
episode, it said be the first to review this. I was like, what? Nobody's reviewed this, but that makes sense then if they're holding it out that nobody can review it. That's very interesting.
Yeah, so maybe
So
now.
what's the idea? So what's the idea with that? Is that your hatred of it will have
you have to want to come back, I guess.
Yeah, you have to want to really come back and crap.
I guess
on
if
it
you
in
come
order to
back, but
do it?
also like it's like, for maybe the people who are on the fence and they go to this show the opening weekend, it's like,
sure.
oh, this is so low, and like I'm not gonna bother with this. It's just so dumb. I mean, even the completely for different reasons, the boys, when they started doing the weekly drop, they were review bombing that because they didn't like how it was being released. Get a life. Okay? It's just it's a TV show. Like,
Yeah.
if you like it, watch it. If you don't like it, don't watch it. Easy.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I gotta ask you guys though, because you guys are the fans. Are you guys gonna keep watching? Are you guys involved? What do you want to see, Kyle? You've seen 2 of 8 episodes. You've seen a quarter of it so far of season 1. What do you want to see this first season?
I don't know. As far as the story goes, I just would like to see it pick up a little bit quicker and get to the action a little bit more. They did have some cool stuff, like the scene with the worm coming through and they had the camera going above and below the water, and we could see that was like one of the coolest things that they did in terms of action and production that made it look really cool. So just maybe a little bit more action or a little bit more advance in the story. Like I said, with that Arendir storyline, it's like I didn't need a whole 50 minutes to understand that there's some kind of connection here, and we can move ahead, especially when we have the child who seems like it might be evil with the blood going into the sword and that coming up. So that dynamic is interesting too. Let's kind of move this along. That's really kind of what I'm hoping for.
I think the big disconnect that I'm seeing is the movies had a lot of action. You were pushing through, you had a couple hours to do it all. Whereas a TV show is going to be a little bit more paced out and it's going to have a little bit more exploration into the story. And I think that's the disconnect. And I'm hoping that that's mostly because of the world building, like we said, and that we'll get going. I'd really like to see more of Galadriel. Right now, I'm kind of sad that she's just hanging out where she is. I kind of wish we would get more of her delving into Sauron and how that's all going to interconnect. I think the kid with the sword, like Kyle said, I think the sword is what's holding Sauron. I mean, that seems to be the most logical thing to me right now. And I think that that other League of Elves and that town, doing what they're doing is going to join up somehow with Galadriel, and we'll figure out there how the show is going to really start moving. And I hope they do that sooner than later, but I think we're going to have to wait and see. But yeah, I'm going to watch some more. I think for anybody who's seen Lord of the Rings, it would be a misservice to yourself to not at least watch a season and see where it goes.
Yeah, I'm going to watch the entire series. My concern is we do all this building and then
We don't
maybe
like
get an
what's built.
episode where it goes, or like where it's like, oh, on the next season, I'm like, oh my God, man,
that's
can you
my
give
worry
us something,
too.
please?
Is we're gonna build to the finale and then that's it. And I do worry about that as well. That's why I'm saying I'm hoping somewhere on the next episode 4 or 5 or 6, no, episode 4 or 5, we really hit some kind of mark and we switch from world building to more action storytelling than dialogue storytelling.
All
But
right.
I'm interested. I'm interested.
Cool. All right, Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power, Amazon. We got some time tonight, maybe even some extended quick checks if some extra people have some extra ones to talk about. I don't know. John, do we have a little jingle?
Quick check.
Yes. All right, quick checks. Well, let's start off with Kyle. You got anything tonight for quick checks?
Yeah, so I think I'm gonna. Yeah, well, I have a lot, but
right.
I think we're starting off with the Adam Project. A lot of Ryan Reynolds tonight, but the Adam Project. It was on Netflix. I almost didn't watch this by choice. Somebody else wanted to watch it, so I was like, okay, I'll watch it. And I was actually pleasantly surprised. I wouldn't say it's great, but it's a interesting watch. It has some time travel incorporated in it, and so it might interest you, Dave, or John, in that sense. I'm terrible when it comes to like the paradoxes and all that, and they make jokes about that in this, but I'm sure there's something that went wrong in that area. But as far as the jokes, it does have some patented Ryan Reynolds humor if you're not sick of that already, but there are like some specific jokes that you can tell, like, oh, this is Ryan Reynolds. The kid that plays in it is pretty good, and there's some questionable acting choices in other characters, but overall, it's not going to be, the best thing you ever watch, but if you were forced to watch it, I think there's worse things that you could watch. There's enough humor in there. Some, deeper introspective moments, but overall is okay.
All right, The Adam Project. All right. Well, I got a movie too to talk about, and I'm going to talk about Elvis. It was released June 24th, but it was put up on HBO Max this past weekend. And this musical biopic from Baz Luhrmann tells the story of course, Elvis Presley through the perspective, though, of his manager, Colonel Tom Parker. And I'll just say up front, it's a Baz Luhrmann film. If you've seen Baz Luhrmann, you know what to expect. There's going to be cuts. There's going to be camera flipping upside down. There's going to be montage. I mean, I can't remember, but I wouldn't be surprised if there was like a star wipe or two at some point. Like, I don't know. And there's, of course, the contemporary musical artists. They're mixed in, with like in backgrounds of scenes or in montages. So you can expect Doja Cat, maybe some Britney Spears Toxic. You could put some Eminem in the credit song. There's some contemporary music in here as well as Elvis as well. And then speaking of him, Austin Butler really goes all out. I will say I had a hard time fully like only seeing Elvis. I mean, he puts a lot into it, but I mean, Elvis is just so distinct. Like it's really hard to compare anyone
We've been
to Elvis.
conditioned to see Elvis in a certain way too. Like
Exactly. And I will say on the flip side, Tom Hanks doing a House of Gucci performance, if there ever was one. I'll admit it though. There was times I forgot it was him. I'm like, there was points I'm like, oh yeah, that's Tom Hanks. Like just between the makeup and the voice and I'm like, oh, this guy is a weirdo. I'm like, oh wait, that's Tom Hanks. And there are, I will say, some of the like production design and like costumes. There's points where I was almost confused, like if they were recreating old footage or if they were in like the montages or if it was real footage, like just the way if they were putting grain on film stock or what it was. It'd be so quick. I'm like, was that real? Wait, that one can't be real. Like, so I don't know what they exactly did and what's real and what's fake, but it looked good. I mean, it was obviously very flashy and stuff like that. My biggest issue, though, I think, was kind of how the story was told and the pace. There were some like big moments I feel like we just glossed over, we flew by. Like I'll just give out two quick examples. Like it just was mentioned that he got the highest payday with RCA Records. Pretty much like his first attempt. It was like his like first day. He got this big. And it's like, well, wait a minute, how did this happen? I would like to know how this interview went. Like he hasn't even been on TV yet. How did he get the biggest payday ever? Don't worry about it. It's big. It's like, okay, I would like to have known that. But and then there was a death of one character who was pretty instrumental in the first third of the movie, a central figure. Kind of just like, wait, did that character die? Like, where are they in the 2/3 of the movie? Like, I would have thought there would have been a scene with our main character and that person. They were so important, but I guess not. We're moving on. And like there was a point when like Tom Parker said, I got him a 7-picture movie deal. And then later in the movie, he's on NBC and it was like, man, everybody will know his name tomorrow. And I'm like, wait a minute, wasn't he in the 7-picture movie deal? It's like, no. We just mentioned it in the montage. We're out of order. That hasn't happened yet. I was mentioning it in the montage. I'm eventually going to get him that picture deal. It's like, stop. Just tell me a coherent A to B story. You're jumping around too much, and it's not the Adam Project with time travel. Let me just get to the point. But yeah, so that's Elvis. I didn't spend $1 on it, so I can't give John anything for his box office draft. But
dang,
that's on HBO Max.
I think I'm doing all right.
Check it out. Yeah, you're okay. You have the #1 movie this past weekend.
Again.
Again. Oh my God. Well, I'm talking about one famous figure. Kyle, you wouldn't happen to have another quick check about a famous figure, would you? You only usually have one.
Yeah, no, I have another. I've been watching a lot of TV, I guess. So I saw this was playing on Hulu. It's called Mike. I saw this was about Mike Tyson's life, and I was like, all right, I got to check it out. So what this show is based off of is Mike Tyson did a Broadway show where he just talked about his life, I guess. And And so they go from his perspective on where he's on stage, and it's a recreation of Mike talking about his life and what he was actually thinking like at the time. And then we'll go back in time to whatever happened in that moment in his life. And it's basically just a lot of kind of vignettes back to his life and then back to him. Almost kind of like I don't want to say directly like this, but similar to like Adam McKay's directing style. But yeah, I knew some of the stories. I didn't know Mike Tyson's entire life. So it is interesting to get glimpses of what's happening. And I think what this show does a good job of doing is, yeah, it does say what Mike was kind of feeling during that time. But it also leaves open to interpretation some of the other characters that interact with Mike. And so it's like, well, did this manager really love Mike, or was it because they saw something in him that they could use? Or was Mike's wife just using him, or did she really love him? Or and what Mike is doing to them is also impacting their decisions. So it's putting those things out there, but letting the audience kind of interpret the situation, which is interesting. And then you have Mike Tyson's kind of idea or opinion of what happened to him during his life, because also he's being reflective of those moments when he's on stage in the Broadway show. So it's interesting. And Dave, as with your job or whatever, what they're allowed to do on this show is insane, because I'm pretty sure I've seen everything in terms of uncensorship.
Oh, all right. I'll have to
definitely
take a look.
seen. Yeah.
Have we seen I'd say the Tommy's Tommy? Little Pam and Tommy reference
I think,
there?
Yeah.
Does it talk? Is it Jason Mantzoukas again?
No, not this time.
Okay, well, all right. John, you must have something.
Yeah.
What do you got going on?
So I have a game called Curse the Golf. The premise is that you're a golfer and you die and you go to golf purgatory. And so it's a 2D golfing game. As you're playing, you are constantly increasing your shot meter so that you don't run out of shots. And you're trying to navigate through a, like I said, a little 2D golf course. And there are all these little power-up cards you can get where maybe you hit harder, or maybe you hit 3 balls instead, or maybe you your ball turns into a rocket and you can control it. And so you're trying to golf through this thing, and you're trying to play 18 holes and escape golf purgatory. But every once in a while, there's a boss, somebody who's stuck in purgatory as well, who you have to fight. And the big twist is when you fail, it's a roguelike. So you start over and the courses are all different. So you can't like learn a course. You gotta just play good and get out of there. So interesting one. I haven't beaten it. I'm not that good at golf, but I've been enjoying it, and it's a cool little twist on the golfing and roguelike. So
it sounds like it would be so hard. This sounds like one of those games that's just ridiculously hard.
It's a little difficult for sure. And especially going from, there's 3 major areas, going into the second area from the first was a big difference. So it's one of those ones where you're constantly learning as you play. And I think they said there's a pool of like a couple of 100 different courses that it can pull from. So, you're not getting the same experience twice whenever you lose or whatever. So it's interesting. It's like I said, a really cool twist, and I've been enjoying it.
All right. Yeah, no, it sounds interesting. Definitely too. Or I can't do regular golf, video game golf. I could barely do mini golf, so I don't think I'd be able to figure this one out. But all right, I don't know, Kyle. You wouldn't have one more in you, would you? I mean, anything sports really? We just talked about golf. Is there anything?
Yeah.
No.
So another series that I started watching was Welcome to Wrexham, which is about Rob McElhenney and Ryan Reynolds buying Wrexham FC during the pandemic, so during the 2020 year. And basically, it's looking into how they purchased the club, and then we like fly forward into them trying to win promotion to another league. So in soccer, you can move up or down a league based on if you win like this playoff system. And what I think this show does a good job of is it picks out a few characters from the team to kind of follow. We also get the business side of things. We get little glimpses into Ryan and Rob's decision to buy the club and things that they have to manage. And then we also get to see the supporters too. So we could see the locals that are really, really into this soccer club, who's been down on their luck. And now these, Hollywood investors are coming in to try and help them. But we can see how people feel about it and things like that. I think it's okay. I think it does a good job of explaining some of the soccer stuff that people in America might not be familiar with. And at the end of the day, these players on this team are really playing for their lives. This is like bottom tier professional football, but it is professional, and they're making a small living on it. And it's like, if they fail, it's really like they're done. So it's just interesting, the dynamics. I think it's more for people that are into sports, but I think they do a good job of explaining stuff. I would say it's more for sports people. I wouldn't say it's like, if you're a fan of Rob or Ryan, tune into this. I think it's more of like, if you dig maybe a Ted Lasso, maybe check it out. Or if you're into watching like sports, the Premier League in the morning, maybe check it out. But I don't know if you're going to get like a Rob and Ryan, like, oh, this is awesome. I'm seeing you're getting them behind the scenes, which if you're into that,
that's what
cool.
I was wondering, because I am
Is it a drama?
I like Always Sunny, but like, yeah, I don't know.
No, it's
sorry.
a doc. So it's a
Okay.
straight documentary.
Gotcha.
They legit bought this team.
Okay.
And they're trying to boost it up. And in the first episode, they purchase the club. We find out halfway through the rest of the year, they kind of fail. And Rob and Ryan really have to clean house and start anew. So you see that demolish and then bringing it back. And then like other problems arise that they really weren't thinking about when you own a team. Like, oh, the soccer field sucks and we need to like pay £100,000 to fix it. And it's like, wait, I didn't know that we had to do that at all. Like, this is insane. Like,
yeah.
So
yeah, interesting. All right.
Yeah,
as I was saying, I'm a Rob fan from Always Sunny, but I don't know if that will be enough, as you were saying. I think, Kyle, if I have to be more into soccer or in football, I guess, to enjoy it.
Yeah. I think it would be better if you were a fan.
Okay, well, all right. Any more quick checks, Kyle? Yeah, anything else? No.
No.
All right. Maybe you'll have something next week. We'll wait and see. Speaking of next week, it's our 400th episode of this podcast. 400 episodes, and we're gonna recap the 74th Primetime Emmy Awards. Just happened to work out that way, and it's gonna be a Tuesday night special because the Emmys are on Monday night, and it was either do a 3.5-hour podcast alongside the Emmys, live stream it, or just wait a day and talk about what happened. And I think we're going to do the latter. Tuesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern on Twitch. If you want more Emmys, last week we just did our prediction special. You can definitely check that out. We predict the top, 12 awards. I don't know how many exactly we did. I think actually, we did 15. There was 15 awards: limited series, drama series, comedy series. So you can definitely check that out. Here, the will wins and should wins, dark horses are. I'm already gonna kind of add a epilogue to that podcast. I think I'm switching Abbott Elementary and Ted Lasso. We debated it last week. I think I'm doing it now, Kyle. Mark that down. A will win. Abbott Elementary, Dark Horse, Ted Lasso. I'm changing it. We'll see what happens next week. But
yeah,
those episodes you can find on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, the blog, dualredundancy.com. Of course, twitch.tv/Dual Redundancy. Normally Mondays, 8 p.m., but next week, Tuesday, 8 p.m. Eastern. And you can follow us on Twitter and on Instagram at Dual Redundancy so you can know exactly what we're talking about. And when we're talking about it, I want to thank both of you guys for joining me tonight on Labor Day Monday. For watching Lord of the Rings, for Kyle, all those quick checks, John directing the show, putting it up on YouTube and Apple Podcasts. I couldn't do it without you guys.
Sure, man.
But all right, that's all we got for this week. Until next time, I'm David Allen.
John Berwick.
and I'm Kyle Bridger.
And that's all we got for Dual Redundancy. Goodbye, everybody.